Just so that the public is aware, those that haven't been to them, we always start our meetings with a moment of silence to try to remember those people that serve us in the armed forces, those people that serve us in public safety, our police, our attorneys, the courts, and also to remember all of those people that are innocent victims of war throughout the world. So if we would have a moment of silence, we follow that with a Pledge of Allegiance. Unfortunately, our tall flag doesn't fit in here, but we do have a flag here. So with that, if a moment of silence and then followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Commissioner Bolender, Commissioner Nelson, Commissioner Stauber here, Commissioner Nelson here, Commissioner Rockers here, and Chairman Commissioner Forsyth
Here. At this time, citizens will be allowed to address the board on items not on the agenda. And for items listed on the board agenda or the committee of the whole agenda, citizens will be allowed to address the board at the time a motion is on the floor. The first thing that we have, is there anyone that wishes to speak to the board about an item that is not on the agenda, whether it be the committee of the whole or the board agenda? Seeing none, we will have a public hearing pursuant to resolution number 14342 adopted June 3rd, 2014 to consider the issuance of an off-sale intoxicating liquor license for the New Scenic Cafe, doing business as the New Scenic Cafe in Duluth Township, and alternative clerk captain to do the legals.
All right. Public hearing is being conducted pursuant to Minnesota statute section 340A, St. Louis County Ordinance number 28, which is the liquor ordinance, and the standing rules of the county board. A copy of the standing rules is available upon request. A formal record will be made of the proceedings. Accordingly, we request that all speakers sign in and state your name and address at the beginning of your testimony. Both verbal and documentary evidence will be accepted by the board. The order for the hearing will be as follows. First, the county attorney will make the initial presentation. Second, representatives of the establishment may appear and give testimony. Third, representatives and other governmental entities may appear and give testimony. Fourth, supporters of the proposed action may appear and give testimony. Next, the opponents of the proposed action may appear and give testimony. And lastly, other comments or evidence. Commissioners may question witnesses at the end of their testimony or at the end of all testimony.
I would turn to the county attorney who will make the opening presentation. Attorney Rubin.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair, Commissioner Forsyth, and members of the county board. Public hearing today is for an off-sale liquor license for the New Scenic Cafe. The applicant is Scott Brayton. It's in Duluth Township. I have a packet that I'm going to be submitting to the county board. I'm particularly pleased to do this because it's one of my favorite restaurants on the North Shore. So attached in the packet here, we've got the Duluth Township approval. We have the liquor liability insurance valid through July 1, 2015. The notice of liquor licensing committee meeting sent to applicant on May 6, 2014. The minutes of the May 13, 2014 liquor licensing committee meeting. And we have the required public hearing resolution number 14-342 adopted June 3, 2014. The notice of public hearing that was published on June 10, 2014 in the Duluth News Tribune. The notice of public hearing sent to the applicant on June 16, 2014. And I will verify here too in this packet that the real estate taxes are all up to date. With that, I'll submit this packet to the board.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. We have, are there representatives of the establishment that they may appear and give testimony? Please.
I'm here.
There's one question that the board has typically asked any applicant there, and we would be wrong if we didn't ask the applicant. You have read all of the rules and understand the rules, and
the question is, have you read all the rules?
I have, and I will.
Very good. I'd like to have it on the record, so thank you.
Excellent, thank you. Anything else?
Oh, and please sign in too for the record there. Representatives of other governmental entities may appear and give testimony. Are there any representatives of governmental entities that wish to take and give testimony? Seeing none, supporters of the proposed action may appear and give testimony. Are there supporters willing to give testimony? Opponents of the proposed action may appear and give testimony. Are there any opponents that wish to give testimony? Any other comments or evidence from the public? With that, looking for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
It has been moved and supported. All in favor of said motion to close the public hearing, signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. Looking for a motion to approve.
I'll make the motion to approve.
Support.
Actually, the motion to approve or disapprove, I apologize. But the motion has been moved to approve and supported. Any discussion? Commissioner Nelson.
Mr. Chair, reporting from the Liquor Committee, there are times when we serve as serving on the Liquor Committee where you see local entrepreneurs that are going out to expand their businesses and doing catering throughout not only the area but actually throughout the state. And it's just so gratifying to see our local businessmen and women, entrepreneurs. This represents a pretty big expansion for this particular organization into the catering end of things, and I couldn't be more pleased to see that. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Very good. Thank you. Any other comments?
I'll just add one thing, just because over the years, not only are they a great place to eat, which has been true, but they have also been a great citizen and often provide food and other things for nonprofits within the community. And so you see them actively participating in the community in some wonderful ways, as Commissioner Nelson has suggested, beyond just what they make their living. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jewell. Any other comment? All in favor of said motion, signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We have the consent agenda in front of us.
So moved, Mr. Chair. Second.
It has been moved and supported, but there is a item on the consent agenda. The first item on the consent agenda listed as a cancellation of contract for purchase of state tax forfeited land. And Land and Minerals would like to have that pulled and returned back to Land and Minerals. So is that motion reflective of doing that?
Mr. Chair, I would amend my motion to reflect the removal of item number 1 back to the department for further consideration.
Okay, and it's okay with the secretary? Commissioner Galbraith. With that, the consent agenda has been moved, supported with the omission of number 1. Comment? All in favor of said motion, signify by the sign aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We have the regular agenda in front of us, and that is Environment and Natural Resources Committee, Commissioner Dahlberg, and there's a resolution opposing the PEIS, the programmatic, environmental impact statement in the Superior National Forest, and I would turn to Commissioner Dahlberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have one under my committee. It's a resolution opposing a programmatic environmental impact statement in the Superior National Forest being asked of the United States Department of Agriculture, and further imploring that our elected leaders at the state and national level, Governor Dayton, Senator Klobuchar, Senator Franken, and Congressman Nolan, to demand that the USDA reject this programmatic impact statement. What I'd like to do, Mr. Chair, if I may, is I'm going to allow Commissioner Nelson to move it, if I could, and I'd like to second it.
Commissioner Nelson, would you like to move?
Mr. Chair, I would love to move this resolution.
The resolution has been moved and support it. I looked comments, and I know we have a number of people that have signed up for it there, but we'll start with commissioner comments and then turn to the public. So, I'm not seeing any hands. Commissioner Nelson.
Mr. Chair, as the maker of this motion, the work that has been done in permitting stages by the various mining companies, whether they're ferrous or non-ferrous, has been extensive. This board is on record supporting non-ferrous mining once that permitting process has been completed. And I see this as but another stall tactic, another delay tactic that is being used by individuals as they assault the middle-class communities that I serve. And that's why I'm bringing this resolution forward at this point.
I do have a sign-up sheet, and certainly I think we'll go through the sign-up sheet. I'm not seeing any other hands at this moment for commissioners. I'm certainly going to be able to have that dialogue after. But why don't we start through the sign-up sheet and hear the testimony of those that have come to speak on this issue. First person that I have on the agenda, on our sign-up sheet is,
I just want to remind
thank you.
the audience that we do allow a 5-minute opportunity for speaking on any agenda topic. Mr. Chair, if you'll allow me to be the timekeeper, I'll certainly do so. I'll flash a 30-second sign when you have 30 seconds left, and then I'll show you when your time is up. So please be respectful of the rest of the room's opportunities to speak. And Mr. Chair, I appreciate that.
Actually, to be honest, I appreciate you doing it. So thank you, Gary. So I had forgotten. So I was. Anyway, we have Gerald Tyler, the first person that has been on this motion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
When does my time begin? Good morning, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for allowing me to be here. I'm Gerald Tyler, and I serve as Chairman and Executive Director of Up North Jobs, a nonprofit corporation organized to promote and support economic development and job growth in northeastern Minnesota. First, some background on why you have a resolution before you. In December 2013, members of Northeastern Minnesotans for Wilderness traveled to Washington, D.C. and met with the USDA to discuss the hard rock mining threat to Superior National Forest. That's their words. In January 2014, NMW's attorney, Jenners and Block, sent a letter proposal to the USDA, asking them to prepare an environmental impact statement concerning hard rock mining in the Boundary Waters watershed. And they asked furthermore that the EIS should take a programmatic approach to assessing the potential impacts of hard rock mining on the Boundary Waters watershed in the Superior National Forest. That's what this issue is about. In April 2014, attorney Rebecca Rahm emailed the BLM field office in Milwaukee requesting a meeting. Writing, we understand the BLM has agreed that environmental review under NEPA is required before any renewal of these two leases, Twin Meadows you're referring to, is considered. Members of our group are Steve Pashot, Steve Parajas, Rachel Garland, Reed Karen, and Julie Strauss-Harris, General Block Attorney. Well, what is NMW and what are their objectives? NMW is a nonprofit organization based in Ely. Their website lists several Elites and directors serving on their board, including Deborah Cleese, Paul Shirkey, Rebecca Rahm, and Brad Sagan, NMW's former chair. Other directors include Stephen Snyder from Edina, Hawkins from Tofty, Thomas Kohler from Silver Bay, and Jeff Evans from St. Paul. I took this from their website. NMW and local allies opened a Sustainable Ely Center to inform and educate visitors about the threat to Ely's sustainable economy and to provide a platform for people to ask politicians to take actions to block sulfide ore mining in the Boundary Waters watershed. Mr. Karen expressed it thusly. Your contribution to NMW will help us continue to build a national campaign to prevent sulfide ore mining for cotton watershed, the Boundary Waters wilderness. So what we have is a proposal now, 9-page, that went to the USDA. The January 24th letter proposal by the attorneys begins by instructing the USDA that the EIS should consider both the impacts of currently anticipated mining activities and the potential impacts of all the already identified deposits were to be mined. Importantly, the EIS should include as an alternative the withdrawal of federal minerals from leasing and development within the Boundary Waters watershed. Attorney Ward continued, the Boundary Waters is home to hundreds of species of wildlife and provide critical habitat for lynx, endangered species, wolf recently delisted, see attachment and reading of the site. That statement is factually incorrect. The Canada lynx is a threatened species. It's never been on the endangered species list. And the wolf has not been listed as endangered, never was, but only threatened. That's significant because one of the environmental organizations is going to use the lynx as an attempt to set aside habitat and not allow mining. Attorney Ward continued. Conducting a programmatic EIS is not only appropriate under NEPA and CDQ regulations, it is also the most efficient and cost-effective way to perform NEPA-required environmental review for hard rock mining activities in the Superior National Forest. The Superior National Forest consists of about 3.45 million acres. 1.2 approximately lie within the BWCA as designated by the 1978 BWCA Wilderness Act. When Congress passed legislation 1978 creating it, they prohibited mining in the BWCAW itself and then a mining protection area. Minnesota expanded the mining protection area with a buffer strip around it that varies from half a mile to 2 miles. And the Forest Service, Congress directed the Forest Service and BLM to expedite the intensification of resource management on the national forest lands of Minnesota outside the wilderness to compensate for loss of mineral and surface resources located in the PWA. The PEIS is unneeded, it's unnecessary, and the project, Twin Metals, does not have a mining project that's reached the project status and therefore cannot be evaluated. And this study is only going to duplicate the site-specific study that will have to be made by Twin Metals. For the foregoing reasons, we urge the council, the commissioners to reject it unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. And we have Reed Karen.
Thank you, Commissioner. My name is Reed Karen. Contrary to what you may read on some blogs, I am a full-time permanent resident of the Township of Morris in St. Louis County. I'd just briefly like to make 2 points to the Commission this morning. First, your resolution refers to the programmatic EIS as duplicative. Nothing could be further from the truth. This is the first step that is required under federal law, under the Council on Environmental Quality Regulations, under the National Environmental Policy Act. That statute and Supreme Court cases decided under it say that anytime federal agencies are considering actions that would have cumulative or connected effects, they are required to conduct a programmatic EIS about the potential environmental impacts of those actions. I think when we take a pledge of allegiance to the flag, we're also saying we're going to abide by the laws of the United States. It could not be clearer that that's what the law requires. A programmatic EIS is the first necessary step before anything else, not duplicating anything else. The second thing is, this is the second time I have appeared before this commission testifying in opposition to a resolution that supports multinational mining companies. I'd like to come here sometime and testify in support of a resolution that supports local entrepreneurs, as Commissioner Nelson referred to. We have some of them in this room. People who, Ely hasn't been a mining town since 1967. By any measure, Ely is one of the most prosperous communities in northeastern Minnesota. You can read the numbers.
In all fairness to all speakers, let's be respectful of this.
Yeah, thank you. I hope that won't count against my time, Commissioner.
That won't count against you.
All right, thank you. And I will repeat that. By any measure, Ely is one of the most prosperous communities in northeastern Minnesota. We have a nationally renowned journalist, Marshall Helmberger, who runs the Ely Timber Jay, who published an article a few months ago pointing out the numbers. The numbers don't lie. This is one of the most prosperous communities in northeastern Minnesota. I would like to see a resolution from this commission in support of the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness and the federal government which has protected that wilderness, which is the reason Ely is one of the most prosperous communities in northeastern Minnesota. You have entrepreneurs in this room, Chairman, who employ people, who have invested their blood, sweat, and tears in their life savings, who continue to want to do that right now, to grow jobs in Ely. If we allow sulfide ore mining in the watershed of the Boundary Waters, it will kill this goose. It will kill the goose that has laid this golden egg. People will not come back. People like me won't retire here. Vacation homeowners won't come. And the hundreds of thousands of tourists who come to northeastern Minnesota every year won't come up here to see Twin Metals concentrator out by the airport. They won't come up here to see the slurry pipe running from that concentrator down over the Laurentian Divide. Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Commissioners. The Minnesotans expect the law to be followed and decisions to be based on science. The county's resolution asks that we urge that the law be violated, and it is certainly not based on science. The issue before us is environmental review of sulfide mining on lands adjacent to waterways that flow directly into the Boundary Waters Canoe Area Wilderness. There are at least 9 sulfide mining projects of very large scale proposed within the watershed of the Boundary Waters. Some of these projects include multiple sites. Twin Metals has 4 sites. All of these mining companies are asking both the state and the federal government now to make decisions on leases, on ore removals, on hydrogeological testing, on prospecting, and the government doesn't have a basis of knowledge or science to make those decisions. Sulfide mining is a dangerous new form of mining that's never been done in Minnesota. This is not taconite mining. The concentration of these minerals in sulfide-bearing ore are very low, less than 1%. That means we are going to have massive quantities of sulfide ore waste on the surface of the earth or in cavities under the earth that will generate acid, sulfuric acid, heavy metals, and sulfates for hundreds of years. If you look at both the second map in my package, you see all the gold, which is the public land subject to federal prospecting and state leasing right now. The forest will be transformed up here. We'll no longer have a forest in a big chunk of the Superior National Forest. That will affect businesses that rely on the forest, such as our timber business and tourist business. It'll affect wildlife and recreational use. The map after that shows the path of pollution from Twin Metals into the Boundary Waters, into Quetico, and on its way to voyagers. Federal law requires that environmental review be done early in the process, not late. And when there are multiple requests for action and multiple activities that are occurring in a specific place, you must connect all of these and study all of them at once. And you must look at the cumulative impact over time. For Twin Metals, it's 100 years. And after you do that study, called a programmatic EIS, then you go project by project. It is designed to be extremely cost-effective and efficient. It will save the taxpayers millions of dollars. This has never been done. The Forest Management Plan adopted in 2004 does not have a single substantive provision on sulfide mining. The process began in 1997. Nobody during that time anticipated we have this level of activity. It is illegal in America to do an activity in a national forest that is not consistent with the forest management law. Federal law requires that this environmental study be done now. Tribes, the Fond du Lac tribe, the Grand Portage tribe, 53 nationally prominent scientists, including members of the National Academy of Sciences, and yes, NMW, who have asked for a programmatic EIS. So the tribes have a very strong vested stake in not polluting the waters of St. Louis County. And their request is what you're asking our government to ignore. We are all asking that the law be followed, NEPA be respected, and that you, the state and the federal government, make informed decisions based on the science. The EIS will tell us about the nature of sulfide mining, which I say is new. It'll tell us about the track record. They've never been able to not pollute waters in areas like this. They will tell you about our environment, the extensive interconnected waterways. We have 190 million acres of national forest lands in America. 20% of the fresh water in our entire national forest system is in the Superior. And we are willing to expose that to toxic pollution without an environmental study. 20% of the fresh water in the entire system. It will also show the effect on recreational use in our national forest and on economic activity. The last map in your package shows the path of pollution from the Twin Meadows mine, acid mine drainage, for which there is a high risk once it's released into those waterways and flows directly into the Bondu waters. Will first pass 26 resorts, camps, and campgrounds in their path of pollution. The lakeshore property alone is worth $318 million for assessed value of St. Louis County and Lake County, and that value will drop. The mining companies are afraid of the PEIS because they know what it will show. I think you owe it to us as your constituents to support the law and make decisions based on sound science. Thank you.
We have Sue Sharkey. Sue.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Susan Shirky. I'm from Ely, Minnesota. My husband and I have a business called Wintergreen Dockside Lodge, located on White Iron Lake. And my former business, Wintergreen Northern Rare, I sold 5 years ago, and it went out of business since that time. And I'm starting that up again. And Gerald's going to do something. Anyway, I'm very concerned about having Twin Meadows located on Birch Lake and the pollution that would occur in flowing into White Iron and this entire area. I think there will be many businesses that are here today that will be gone because of this type of mining. And I'm a supporter of iron ore mining. I always have trouble with the we support mining buttons because I don't think they distinguish, this lumping it all together. And from what I know, sulfide mining has never been done safely anywhere in the world. And with the programmatic EIS, I think we need to find out all the information that we possibly can before we make a decision. And I know this is an election year, and I respect politicians who will say, let's get all the information first before we make a decision. I do not respect people that, because they want to be elected, simply say, let's just go ahead with it. I would hate to see this community destroyed because of the pollution of sulfide or sulfuric acid, what it could do to the water here, and the health that could be impacted with our citizens. I'm just very concerned about this. I have actually a little story. 3 years ago, I visited one of the drill sites, and first of all, I asked all the people there, who here is from Ely? There wasn't one person from Ely. There was one man from Hivingville that was working there. That was an eye-opener for me. There were, however, 3 people from foreign companies, or foreign countries working there, and I can't remember, I think New Zealand, maybe Spain, Argentina. I was concerned about that because I'm very leery of foreign mining, foreign corporations coming into this area and saying they can do something, and I'm just not going to take their word for it until we have the science. But I did, at this time, I met a very nice man at this drill site. He was a geologist from Argentina. And we were talking, and we have children of the same age. And I said, so what do you think? Honestly, you're a geologist, what do you think? And he said, oh, they're going to do it right in this great country. They're going to do it right. And I said, so I walked around with him pretty much the whole morning, and I said, seriously, if you lived here, you don't live here, if you lived here and your children were here, wouldn't you be concerned about the water? And what's, sulfide mining is so different from iron ore mining. Then he said to me, well, yes, and I can say in his accent, I would be concerned if I were you. At that time, Bob McFarland separated us. He was very concerned. I should probably be talking about this private conversation, but that, I just feel like there's so many people whining, mining, because this is a mining area. And the proud people of this area that contributed so much to with the iron ore industry. It's been an honorable profession. But sulfide mining is a different deal, and I think we need to know the facts before we make a decision, because it will affect all of us, all of our children and grandchildren. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. We have John Flatten, I believe. John, please come forward.
Yes, I'm John Flayton. I live in Eagles Nest Township. We are one of the subdivisions that adopted resolution contrary to the city of Ely against sulfide mining, and that was done about 3 years ago. It was done in connection with mineral leases that were being granted starting in 2010 through 2012 that are now effective in our area. I have about, I think the head count is about 60 of them. They're all within a mile of where I live. And I'm very concerned about this whole issue of sulfide mining and whether or not it is healthy for the people who are involved in doing it and for the people who might be in the downstream watershed flow of it. I have a number of these leases that are within 1/8 of a mile of where I live, right on the lake shore of Eagles Nest 1 Lake, which is where my home is. I've been there full-time since about 2002, and I've owned that property for about 18 years. And I was drawn to this area because of the characteristics not only of the outdoors there, but of the town of Ely. And I understand the concerns that some of the folks in this body have about taking the time to do a programmatic EIS, but I would like to see the science understood and developed by independent scientists, not geologists employed by the mining companies or public relations firms, but people who are actually independent. And some of those independent scientists are among the people that are asking for EIS now. I am reminded that there were voices at the time that fluorocarbons became a boon to consumer products in this country. There were scientists warning that the ozone layer would be depleted as a result of that sort of activity going on. They became endemic because they weren't studied thoroughly, the science wasn't developed, and the cost of unwinding that was phenomenal. The cost of unwinding this, if the mining companies are wrong, will go on forever and can't be cured. So I want to say thank you.
Thank you, John. We have Fred Carlson. Fred.
Morning.
Good morning, Brad.
Brian Carlson. I grew up in Virginia down the road, and my father was a millwright for 41 years for U.S. Steel, retired from there. And my wife and I now live up here seasonally 6 months a year. We've had our place for 11 years. I would like to go on record as just saying that I think it's wrong that this commission would oppose the law, the federal law that requires a PEIS. I would consider your opposition to it as an assault on your citizens that you represent. This is such an important issue because there's never been hard rock mining that's been done on the face of the earth without major incidents, destruction to the community, a wake of devastation behind it. If you ask these companies, these multinational companies that do this all over the face of the earth, if they can pull this off, if they have pulled it off somewhere successfully, with modern, today's regulations, today's technology, all the bells and whistles that we have in 2014, they cannot answer you positively. Look at the state of Wisconsin and how they handle this sort of an application. They tell these companies, if you can show us a place where this is being done, and it's being done successfully, you can mine here. No one's mining here, and they won't be. We're talking about an industry, the hard rock mining industry, that's the largest polluter in the United States, has been for years. It's on record. They're responsible for over 150 Superfund sites in this country that are going to cost hundreds of billions of dollars to clean up. Most of which they're not taking responsibility for. They simply move on. And these juniors that they send in to explore, do the PR work, get the community behind them, and get through the permitting process, frequently declare bankruptcy, move on. And so what I see in that sort of scenario is giant multinational corporations that could care less about this community. So my question to you is, why would you pass a specific resolution to oppose the law that requires a look at these companies to make sure they're not going to destroy us? And why would you trust them? These are big, giant, profit-oriented corporations that do this all the time. And I'd be willing to bet you that if this was like some federal agency or government regulation, about to be passed about some issue up here, a lot of these people would be up in arms fighting tooth and nail against the government agency that was going to propose to do something up here. But why does everybody trust these big, giant multinational corporations to just come up here and say, well, trust us, we're going to do it right this time? Because if they don't, and the record says they won't, this place is going to be a disaster area. We're going to be a Superfund site. And your people you represent are going to be paying for it. The taxpayers are going to be paying to clean up the Superfund site. The lakes that it's going to affect are not buffered lakes, which means they have no content in them to neutralize or otherwise take care of themselves if the pH levels start changing. A couple of pH points off on these lakes, all the fish species die. Boom, where's your economy then? I just want to say that I think it's wrong to pass a resolution to oppose the laws that your citizens have to protect them in this case. Thanks.
Thank you, Brad. Barb Garza.
Hello, everybody.
Hello, Barb.
Thank you all very much for giving me the opportunity. That was my husband, so I'll ditto everything he said. And add my piece is that I chose to move up here because of the location, the environment. I was blown away when I came here 11 years ago. I had never seen anything like this place, and I've been many places in my life. And so we chose to buy a place here so that we could enjoy the outdoors, that we could enjoy the beauty that you have, the vast waters that you have. And when I think about what's happening in our world in terms of water and all the things that are happening right now environmentally throughout the world about the lack of water, and that's the next resource that we're going to be struggling with in the world these days, is about clean water. That you have an opportunity right now to do the right thing and protect those waters from the things that will alter it and then create a bad future for your generations. And when I think about the parks and the land that was created for those people, for us to have that in our future, for our generations, we have an opportunity right now to do the right thing and protect those waters, because that opportunity won't come again. And if we do the wrong thing and don't study it and don't get the facts first before we make decisions, we're going to be leaving nothing good for our future generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Laura. We have Chris Chandler next.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Chris Chandler. I own property on White Iron Lake and have a financial and investment interest in this community and in this area. We shop at local businesses. We employ local business owners. We pay taxes in this county. And so, the reason that we're here is because we value clean air, clean water, and the wilderness. You can choose to move many different places in this world. There's lots of beautiful places. But this place really is special. One thing I found is that this really is a vibrant community. There is a lot going on, and it's fascinating. Compared to other towns of this size, Ely, and other places in the country, there's not much going on in a town with this population, but Ely is different. And it's because of the people, the entrepreneurs that started businesses, people that choose to move here. So I am pro-jobs. I want to see this community succeed. I am opposed to multinational corporations coming in and destroying the land and the water that supports this whole area. So really, if the mining operations are as safe as they say they are, we should welcome this PEIS. It will prove that it's safe. So we do need to rely on the science, on the facts, and show that this really is safe. We should not be afraid of it, because if that's really true, then we should welcome the PEIS and all scientific studies in this area. So prove it first.
Thank you. We have Lindsay Lang. Lindsay?
Morning, I'm Lindsay Lang. I first came to the Ely area in 1964 as a 16-year-old, went on my first canoe trip, and I was hooked. I came back as often as I could, and 2 years ago, I moved here full-time, and I feel like it's a coming home that has been a long time waiting for me. And so as a relatively new citizen full-time of this area, I'm sensitive to how does one support oneself? What kind of a job is available? And I worked for 2 years as a server at one of the local restaurants, and I can tell you that without the people coming in here to take their wilderness canoe trips, a big chunk of our economy would be gone. I made more money in tips in June, July, and August than in the other 9 months of the year altogether. And it wasn't just, I made a lot more. That was it. That's what that was the living that I was earning. But the thing that I found so interesting and gratifying about being able to serve those people is I would see them coming in, and they would come in, and you knew they were about, you could tell they were about to go out on a trip. They had their maps, they had their gear, they had the gizmos and gadgets that they brought across the wilderness, but they would be so excited, and they would tell you all about the route they were going to go on and what they were going to do. And then you'd see them again when they'd come back out, and they'd be tan, and they'd have mosquito bites, and their muscles would be firmer. And they'd had a great time, and they were so excited, and they were already planning their next trip, and they were going to come come back, well, maybe not next year, but, maybe the year after, or we're gonna come for our honeymoon. And people, this area has something that draws people back, and I think it is the timelessness, the whole nature of the surroundings. And I mean, certainly what brought me here, 45, 50 years after first coming. And so when I see an opportunity for something like this programmatic EIS, it's like, why would we not welcome this kind of information? I mean, you could be pro-mining or anti-mining, but I think we should all be in favor of informed decision-making. Why not get the information? I have a good friend who works pretty high up for Freeport McMoran, in whatever company it's, all the mines, copper mines down in Arizona. And when I got here and I became aware that the place I had just moved to had all this mining on the horizon, I was like taken aback. It's like, what's this going to mean? And there's a lot of hype on either side. And so I called him. I said, what's the deal with this? What can you tell me? And, I took environmental law with him in law school. I know that he's a good guy. And I said, what are the environmental risks here? And he said, we're very safe, and we have these liners that are impenetrable and this, that, and the other thing. And I said, well, what about up here in a really water-rich environment, in the boundary waters where these lakes are connected, I had to explain to him what a rod was, but 20 rods, 40 rods, or even a quarter of a mile in between these lakes. And he said, and there was a pause, and he was like, well, it would be different. It would be very different when you're in that kind of proximity to water, and I don't know the answer. So that tells me that we need to find the information to get these answers before we go ahead. Why not do this now? Get the information before, the companies have invested more resources in something that, maybe won't work. Why not learn what are the right steps to take? And for those of us who are going to live here, why not find out what it really is going to mean for all of us? I see no downside to getting this kind of information. Objective, scientific, reality-based information that would be devoid of the kind of politics, hype, public relations that so many of the other things that we come across are. So I would say, don't adopt this resolution.
Thank you, Wendy. Sarah Malik Walls, please.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. So, as a citizen of Ely and a biologist with a Master of Science degree, a Minnesota taxpayer in St. Louis County, I wholeheartedly object to this type of sulfide mining in the Boundary Waters watershed. This type of mining in particular is wrong for our area because it will forever change the chemistry of the water. It will make it uninhabitable for many of our characteristic aquatic species. There are copper reserves in many dry deserts in the world, including Arizona, the Atacama Desert of northern Chile, where the ecosystem is much less sensitive to bringing sulfur-bearing ores to the surface and exposing them to oxygen and to water. And I feel that those environments are more appropriate for this particular type of mining as opposed to here. When the game fish decline and the town develops an industrial mining atmosphere, which it undoubtedly will if we have large trucks moving equipment and material and have large operations that we need to drive through on Highway 1 coming up here and possibly also on 169. It will change the atmosphere of this community, and I think that the money lost from tourism will be greater than the money gained from local jobs that will come about from this type of mining. The new jobs provided will by and large be highly skilled professions that our locals are not trained to perform. Before I lived in Ely, I lived over in Marquette, Michigan, And there was a copper mine that is further along in in development over there. And before I left, I observed people, actually my downstairs neighbor and my next door neighbor, both moved to that area within a few months of my leaving from Texas to work in the mines. And I did not know anybody personally that was not from out of state that got a job working for the mine. And when I talked to them, both of them still had families that lived down in Texas, and they were not planning on moving them up there. They were just commuting by airplane. So from that little anecdote, I feel that we don't have a lot of evidence that we're going to have a lot of local jobs from this type of mining. The Boundary Waters is a federally designated wilderness area, which we as a nation are committed to protecting in a natural state. And I think that if we allow this type of mining to pollute our waters, we are setting a precedent for natural land protection everywhere. And we're saying that our word is not good, that we're just going to protect land and the waters associated with it when it's convenient for us because we don't have another purpose for it. But as soon as it becomes profitable or convenient, we could start chipping away at protected land everywhere. And so I think that we owe it not only to this particular area to protect it, but also to protect natural land everywhere by holding ourselves to our word. If opponents disagree with my viewpoint and believe that we can have both clean water and this type of particular type of mine, then they should welcome this programmatic EIS. We should all welcome it from no matter what side we are, and we're hearing this from multiple people, but I think this would really help us to settle the dispute. If it's possible to have clean water and have these mines, then many folks, including myself, would not really have much of an argument against it. And sure, why not bring it in if that's possible? And I think that we need to look at the cumulative impacts, not just each individual proposed mine, because that altogether is not going to tell us what the cumulative impacts will be if we look individually. And then it looks like I'm almost out of time, so the last thing I wanted to say is that I've lived in 12 different states. I originally came to Ely to go to Vermillion College. I moved away, I finished my master's degree, and I chose to come back here because of the community and because of the beautiful water. And I just recently got married. My husband and I are going to have children, but we'll move away if these mines happen because it's not the place we'd like to be. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. We have Steve Bishop. Steve.
Commissioners, welcome. Thanks for the opportunity to speak to you today. I've spoken to you before about this issue up at Morris Hall. I'd just like to spend a little bit of time explaining where I came from. I'm born and raised in Ely. I went to school in Ely. Mike and I lived relatively close to one another. So I spent my growing up years in this town. So, like a lot of people that are sitting in this room, I respect and understand what this issue is with the mining. My father was a miner. He worked in the taconite mine. Unfortunately, he ended up having mesothelioma and died from breathing taconite dust. He was a supervisor at the crusher, so I recall taking a tour with him many years ago. They give you a hard hat and safety glasses, but nothing to cover your mouth. So obviously, I'm sure that's the major cause of it. My brother was also involved in mining. And some of you probably knew him. He was assistant superintendent at LTV Steel, and he was there when the property closed. He was managing the property, so obviously he had vested concern with what was going on there. And unfortunately, he ended up having health issues too, and he passed away. So I'm the only one left. Guess what? I never worked in the mine. I never planned to work in the mine. My goal in life was to be an entrepreneur. And with that, I bought a family resort that my dad had started. It was bought in 1944. So do the math, that's just about, what, 70 years? So the unique thing about it, though, is I'm not a St. Louis County property taxpayer. I am in Stony Township, and that is the town where the mine is supposed to be, along with Fall Lake. If you look at the map that you have that was passed out, you see the location of where we're at. We're right at the intersection of what's called South Bushbury River and Rich Lake. We're right on that point. So across the river, they want to have the underground shaft. On the other side of the river, they want to have the processing plant. One is in Lake County, and one is in St. Louis County. How are they going to get the material there? They're going to dig a tunnel underneath Birch Lake. What is going to be the result of that? We have a fractured geology there. How are we going to prevent a future catastrophic event of the lake giving way? Who's to say? We do not know. No one knows. No one knows where the water goes. We have an issue here with the mine being right at the core part of the South Bushbury River, and it's going to be the source of water that feeds all the way down through the entire chain. And some of you that are sitting in this room, your honey hole fishing spots, we're probably going to be long gone, but your grandkids will not have the same type of situation that we have. And my biggest concern is, as a business owner, being there for as long as I have, is to see what's going to happen to the other 26 properties that are on the chain. There's 4 commercial businesses on Birch Lake. Then you go down to White Iron, and White Iron has a number of properties. I think there's 3 resorts and 1 major restaurant. It's not going to be instantaneous, but it is going to happen. And decisions that you guys are going to have to make is more than just jobs. There's something special. It's popular. And everybody comes up here. It's the most important place. It is the most desirable place where people want to go. And what's going to happen is this is not only going to affect Ely, it's going to affect all the communities all the way down, all the way across the state. Duluth in particular. I get hundreds of people that stop in Duluth and stay on my property. Over 3,000 guests a year. My final statement, you should deny the resolution, refuse it. Your smartest decision would be to table it and make no decision. Because what you're doing is sticking your feet in your mouth, and it's going to cause you big problems in the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Carol Orban, Carol, the floor is yours.
Good morning.
Good morning, Carol.
I think planning EIS for all of these different proposed sulfide mining projects is exactly what needs to be done. And it is the law, by the way. And I know there are people that poo-poo regulations, they don't like regulations, they think of them as being imposed from on high, but it's regulations that, remember what it was like in the 70s when rivers were burning and you couldn't breathe the air in some cities? It was regulations that cleaned up our environment to what it is today. In some places it certainly could be better, but it sure is a hell of a lot better than it was 40 years ago. So I think most regulations, probably some are a little bit too much, you know, all the paperwork that people have to do when they own businesses and things, but for the most part, I think environmental regulations are well thought out. They're written by experts and scientists, and they need to be followed. And I don't think a county board has the authority to counteract federal law. And I don't understand what this whole resolution thing is supposed to accomplish. It seems to me like what it accomplishes is creating more divisiveness in the atmosphere in our area. And I hate to see that. I hate to see our community divided once again on another issue. And yet, I can't help but speak up about how I feel about it. And you know, yesterday, Ed Schultz, who has a show on MSNBC, he was in Virginia. And I watched it later because I couldn't see it on TV. I watched it online. The segment with the steelworkers, the president of the steelworkers, and Rick Nolan. And I was just thinking, you know, all this Chinese and South Korean steel is being dumped on this country, and the corporations that need the steel, they don't give a damn about our workers here in the steel mines. They just want the bottom line. That's all they're looking for. And the Republicans in Congress will not listen to people like our representative to stop this fast-track free trade agreements that are going on that hurt our workers. And copper is a commodity just like steel, and copper is going to be at the mercy of any price that's, you know, an international, a global price, and it can go up, it can go down. And it's another, I don't know if a planning EIS looks into the economic impact of this kind of operations, but I'm concerned about that as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Carol. We have Bob Tammons. Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members. I'm Bob Tammons from Sudan, Minnesota. In my younger days, I spent several years working at the Mintac plant in Mountain Iron. So yesterday, my wife Pat and I went to the rally in Virginia to protest the dumping of foreign steel into our economy. And it was good to see a number of Mintac employees there wearing their Mintac t-shirts. One of the t-shirts had an interesting message. It said, "We've mined 3 billion tons of ore," as of 2012. And of course, that's in my lifetime. I started working in the 60s, that's about when Mintac started up. So, we have a history to look at. We know what a 3 billion ton mine looks like. You look at Mintac, you got roughly 8 miles of pit, probably 13 square miles of tailings pond, hundreds of acres of waste dumps. And so, that gives us a way to think about the proposed Duluth complex mining operation. I've heard reputable economists say that's a 10 billion ton ore body. They throw it up on their PowerPoints, it's all graphed out. So they do claim it's a 10 billion ton ore body. Now, if Mintac produced an 8-mile long pit, 13 square miles of tailings ponds, what is our 10 billion sulfide ore body going to produce? Now, there will be more waste. Our iron runs between 20 and 30% iron in the ore body. Our sulfide ore body runs less than 1%, so we're going to have at least 50% more waste, I would estimate. But that's an estimate on my part, it's not a scientific analysis. And I see no reason why we shouldn't do a scientific analysis to answer those questions with a programmatic environmental impact statement. And I could point out other instances where, probably to the regret of a lot of Minnesotans, we haven't done our homework before we start permitting mines. And I speak specifically of Highway 53. The taxpayers are going to pay to move Highway 53. Why did we sign that agreement to move it for the mining company? Seemed like a good idea at the time, we needed some jobs, but now the chickens have come home to roost, and the latest estimate I see, it runs between 60 and 300 million. The numbers are all over the place. That's a big span between 60 and 300 million. Depends on whether you throw a bridge in, the routing, but regardless, the taxpayers are going to pay. And I think there are people wishing they'd had the foresight to do a rigorous analysis 50 years ago and have public input and have some skeptical people look at where we put our highways and what we agree to move for the mining industry. And what we're facing now is the beginning of a sulfide mining industry. And I fail to see any long-range benefit, and I speak especially of the economics of mining. We have a history there with economics of mining. We've had 70 years of the IRRB, of the 50 years of the Taconite Amendment. We have pampered our mining industry. What does our economy look like? We're not doing so good. 6 operating taconite plants, magnetation, Masabi Nugget, we still don't have a thriving economy. And I think we should look at that skeptically. Why are we starting to look a little more like West Virginia every year? And I maintain it's because West Virginia has been afflicted by the resource curse. Their whole state economy is dominated by mining, whereas we're fortunate, only our northern Minnesota economy is dominated by mining. And I think we'd be well off to try to eliminate some of that domination. We've invested in our mining industry, our iron mining industry. We're going to live with that. I'm satisfied the rest of my life, but we should do a little more work to cleaning it up. I believe we should be intensely skeptical of sulfide mining. We have the record, we have the history, let's respect it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. We have Hans Olson. Hans.
Thank you. Good morning, gentlemen. I happen to be a local guy from the, I'll call it the thriving Ely area, who supports copper nickel mining. I happen to be the son and grandson of iron miners. I have lots of family members who work in the iron mining industry. I think copper nickel mining is going to be great for our economy, and I understand why most of our politicians are supporting it. Jobs are important, and I'm convinced that this can be done in a way that protects the environment. Having said that, I think you're making a serious mistake, Mr. Nelson, with your resolution. I ask you, is there anybody on this commission who really thinks all we're doing is evaluating one mining company that's going to operate for 20 years and then close? Is anybody who thinks that? I'll ask the group. Is anybody in the room who thinks that we're evaluating one mine that's going to operate for 20 years and then close? I don't think anybody here believes that. We're evaluating a $1 trillion industry that's going to have a dozen mines, and it's going to operate for 100 years or 200 years. And in that sense, it's important that these 4 agencies that are evaluating the environmental impact evaluate that entire industry, not just that one mine. And so I urge you not to be afraid of this programmatic EIS. It's a fine thing. It's what's required. And I'll give you one example. The Forest Service right now is evaluating a land swap for polymer. And it would be foolish, in my estimation, for them to look at that in isolation as just a one-time event. They need to consider that over the next 10 to 20 years, there could be a half a dozen mines, all asking for land swaps in those same St. Louis River drainage area at the headwaters of the Partition and Barris Rivers. There could be a half a dozen of these big tailings basins and these other waste rock dumps, all requiring land exchanges. So the Forest Service, as a matter of simple common sense, should look at that big picture, not just at that one mine. I'd go further and say if you're actually successful in passing this resolution and pushing off this programmatic EIS, all you're doing is postponing it. This is such a simple, common sense thing to do that inevitably it's going to be done. If you get rid of it today, it'll come back 2 years from now when some judge orders it done. So for people like me who want this mining to go ahead, I think it's important to go ahead and do this programmatic EIS. We don't want these agencies doing this evaluation with one hand tied behind their back. And I would further suggest that if anyone had a little political courage, you might offer another resolution. And that, I think you could make a constructive contribution to this debate if you were to say, pass a resolution that encouraged the Forest Service to complete this programmatic EIS within 18 to 24 months. And that would coincide with the approximate time frame that it's going to take Polymet to complete its evaluation of the 50,000 public comments that they have to deal with on the current supplementary SDEIS. So in all likelihood, this resolution will pass, I assume, here today, though I bet you're a little bit surprised how many people are speaking against it. If it does pass and the programmatic EIS goes ahead anyway, I hope that this group of people will be supportive of the work that they're doing to make sure that we answer the second question. The first question is to mine or not to mine. And in my view, that's almost settled. This mining is coming, it's going to go ahead, and the more important question facing all of us is it going to be done right? And I hope that this group of people takes that second question seriously. Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. We have Kirsten, the floor is yours.
Hi, I'm Kristen Reichel. I lived in White Lakes. I graduated from Aurora White Lakes High School. I got my degree at the University of Minnesota Duluth, and since that time I've been living in the Cook area. My brief comment is that I respect those that are fighting nationally against this mining proposal. However, I feel that the mining company has done extensive work to answer some of the concerns that have been brought before the public, and I believe that the permitting process should be allowed to continue.
Thank you. We have Bernie Collins.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm Bernard Collins. I'm the President and CEO of Laurentian Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate you hearing us today. Laurentian Chamber is all for responsible, sustainable mining, and I've been asked to come here today and assure you of that stand. We have filed resolutions, and we have supported responsible mining for as long as I've been around. Just as and I think Commissioner Nelson made a good point early in the discussion, I usually have a little quote put on my business cards, and some of you have been fortunate to receive one of these. But the past two, I have one here that alludes to exactly what Commissioner Nelson was saying. Nothing will ever be attempted if all possible objections must first be overcome. And the second one is, if Columbus had an advisory committee, he'd probably still be at the dock. And those are my famous people. And I'll file these with you, Commissioner Nelson. And thank you very much for hearing us.
Thank you, Bernie. And we have Suzanne Bowman. Suzanne? No. Sue, please.
Hi, my name is Sue Bowman, born and raised in White Lakes, Minnesota. I respect everybody and their views and everything, but what really bothers me is so many of you who are against the mining in the area are still using cell phones, are still driving cars, everything that requires copper. So you are supporting what we need to live in this area. by using these, and that creates jobs. So I don't understand why you don't trust Minnesota and the EIS that was done already and shown that it can be done safely. Instead, you trust other countries that do not have the regulations?
They have a couple commissioners that asked to address the board.
Oh, my apologies.
Yes, please.
But they trust China, they trust other countries that don't have the regulations that our country and our state has so heartedly achieved. And so far, the first EIS is just wasting our time. It's not getting people working. I manage a hotel in White Lakes, and right now, I'm one of the highest employers in White Lakes, which is only 25 people. Not even 25 people. Now, if this goes through, with even in Babbitt and all the other mines, do you know how many more people I could hire? And how many more people will be working? And we're not just saying in the mines. We're talking about all of the other supported jobs. All of the vendors that come in the area, they'll be hiring people, they'll be deciding to put their companies in this area. One of them is, I don't know if I should say their name, but Power Clean. When I was working at Mountain Iron at the Holiday Inn Express, they did a lot of work up here. They decided to open up a branch office in this area. So what does that mean? More tax money. We don't need to just delay this anymore. It has been delayed long enough. Let's get to it. Let's get these people working, and let's get the economy and everybody using their cell phones and laptops and their windmills. Thank you.
Thank you, Sue. Commissioner Nelson?
Before I ask for a personal privilege, can I compliment the last speaker on the color of her attire? And then I would ask for a personal privilege.
Okay, let's take 5 minutes for personal privilege. There are restrooms across the hall, across the road also. We'll call this meeting back to order. Commissioners are present, and so the next person that we have to speak is Lori Vito. Lori, and I believe that she is going to have the mayor come up with her, if I'm not mistaken, and they will share their time, is what I understand. So, she asked me during the break.
I appreciate that. We'll just take 5 minutes. This is Mayor Panada from Hibbing.
Yep.
I'm Lori Fito. I'm with the Hibbing Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm also on the board of jobs for Minnesotans. I also am a Slide Lake resident and own property in Bilobic, and actually 10 miles north of the mine, copper mine of Michigan. So I kind of know mining. It's been where I grew up. It's what I've lived most of my life. The question was asked quite often by people who spoke before me, why not do this PEIS? And my answer is because we already do an EIS in Minnesota. And if you missed it over the last couple of years, I find that hard to believe because there was hearing after hearing. There are stacks and stacks of documents. there was plenty of scientific data, and the DNR and the multiple agencies that worked on that did an incredible job. And I went to all those, I've looked through the data, and I just don't know why we have to do that again and spend millions and millions of dollars to do that in Washington DC and take that process outside of where the mine is. I just don't understand it. And I think that it will only delay the jobs that are coming with that and the economic impact, because it does exist. It does exist in Michigan. I have cousins who work at that mine, and it will exist in this county as well. So I appreciate and hope that you pass this resolution. Thank you. Mayor Canal.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm here, I represent, well, I'm the mayor here in Minnesota, plus I represent the laborers union in northern Minnesota. You hear these stories, there's been enough studies on all these projects. In the city of Hibbing alone, we have 3 active mines right now going, and we have tourism. I hear these stories from the lady from Michigan about 2 construction workers, they're never gonna move their families there. Well, I'll tell you what, we have members that travel around the country doing pipelines, building bridges and roads. They go to different areas, they spend a lot of money. And in the meantime, they might end up liking there, their families will come there, they move there, the population grows. I mean, you hear about Ely saying they're a thriving community. Really, when you're graduating 40 kids right now, 50 kids in the community, you're not growing, you're shrinking. I came up here a lot with my sons playing my basketball and baseball. The town is going the opposite way. I mean, it's a proven fact. I mean, you want to have these numbers. In the city of Hibbing, when the mine shut down, our population was going down. Right now, with the 3 active mines going there, the school enrollment's been going up. So the 6th through kindergarten classes right now are the biggest classes right now that are graduating from Hibbing. So there's people that'll move here. There's been studies already done for many, many years. I think the commission should pass the resolution that they want to have in front of them today and move on with this, and then you'll see Ely move. And if you think you're going to have mine trucks going down Main Street, you don't have mine trucks. You have distributors coming in, bringing other business in, other jobs, and waitressing. You make it 3 months. If you have this mine here, and this thing's going, you're going to have tips all year round. So it's not going to be a 3 months impact. This will be a year-round impact for you and for the community. So I think the commissioners should pass the resolution that they brought before, and that's all I need to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. I would, I guess I would kind of refrain from the clapping, because I would love to do it myself on a number of the speakers, but at the same time, let's all try to be respectful and stuff. So, with that, we've got Charlie Baraboo from the city of Virginia. Charlie.
Thank you, Commissioner, Chair, and members of the Commission and the audience. I'm going to put on 3 different hats today. I'm put on a hat as the Virginia City Councilor for 21 years. I'm also a pharmacist by trade for 40 years, and I'm also the chairperson for the Highway 53 committee that's been working on the Highway 53 Cross Iron Range. A number of weeks ago, I spent time at the Laurentian Visioning Partnership. They put together these concerns on sulfates. They had the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and they also had an independent study done by the Chamber of Commerce of Minnesota with separate hired scientists. The conclusion was that sulfates, yes, can be a problem, but the discharge process that Polymet is going to use is a process called reverse osmosis, and both parties agreed that this is the cleanest set of water that will ever go back into your systems. The water coming into the system is dirtier than the water going out. Reverse osmosis has been used in the pharmacy industry since the 1960s. It's used in your pollution or your sewage treatment plants. So the system is there. In fact, you have to add chemicals back to make it drinkable, and that's how pure it comes out of the system. So your thoughts about water and how it's going to be affected if they put the proper ponds and stuff for retention, it's fine. They also found another fact, that iron helps get rid of the sulfates in there. It precipitates the sulfates out and puts it in a non-soluble form. So if they control that and farm it and put it in a dry form. That will help this whole system and your concerns about water. I'm going to move on here from that process. Number one, this process that they're looking at, that problematic EIS, is a waste of time. Polymet's already been through. I'm working on Polymet because I spent a lot of time with that. They've already had a supplemental EIS that had nothing or mostly to do with water. The EPA of the federal government rated from 0 to 10, they rated the Polymet's process and the supplemental EIS as a number 2. That's never been done in the mining industry in the United States before. That's the highest rating that any mining industry, any place in the United States has gotten. This has to do with the new copper, nickel, and precious minerals. The city of Virginia, and I'm going to put my hat on with that now for a little bit. The city of Virginia has passed resolutions opposing the problematic PEIS, along with other communities across the range. I'm in contact with mayors, with city councilors all across the range, from Point Lakes to Aurora to Barlavik to Gilbert to Virginia to Evelyn to Mount Iron. All these mayors in these towns are opposed basically to this problematic PEIS program. We feel that we need the jobs. And here's some facts and figures that you need to understand what will happen on this. The boost to construction in this area, and these are statistics that have come out of Polymet's estimates and economists' estimates of $470 million in just construction investment. $2 million in construction hours for people to come up here and work, and that's so important. Our job market up here is atrocious right now. Our population of all our cities have gone down. Virginia used to be 14,000 people. It's 8,712 right now, and that's not too many years ago. It's due to the lack of jobs up here. The annual boost to the economy for jobs is 360 jobs additional for Polymet. 600 spin-off jobs. This is annual. $36 million in wages and benefits will occur from this process. $515 million in economic benefits to St. Louis County alone from Polymet's jobs and the mine that they're going to put together. $15 million in local tax increase and $45 million in federal tax. I mean, purge that out over 20 years. It's $720 million in wages. $10.3 billion to the economy of St. Louis County. $300 million in local taxes and $900 million in federal taxes. Now, if your concerns from the cities and the townships, etc., across the southern part or the central part of St. Louis County, across the Iron Range, they're supportive of the resolution opposing this process. So I want this board to vote in opposition. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. So we got Aaron Wright. Please, Aaron.
He had to go to work.
He had to go to work. Okay, so we've got you, Joe.
Commissioners, thank you for your time.
And identify yourself.
Yeah, I'm Joe Shear from Embarrassment, Minnesota. I live about 4 miles from the proposed Polymet site. I wholeheartedly embrace these mines coming up here. Northern Minnesota is a mining community. You can look at every job up here, with the exception of tourism, is tied, even some tourism is tied because locals utilize these same people, is tied to mining. Your nursing homes, they have retired iron miners there. Your hospitals, who's going there? The mining. Mining is driving everything up here. And mining is starting to slip. Yesterday you had your rally in Virginia supporting dumping. Now let me ask you this, if U.S. Steel shut down because illegal dumping, what would happen to our economy? What would happen to our tax base up here? Quite honestly, it would really take a cracker. Pardon my language. But we need this. And to address, somebody was saying earlier that we don't have the educated people up here to handle doing these jobs. My son just graduated high school and is attending Itasca College to become an engineer. looking at going to work in the mines. He is orientating himself in that direction. We will train our people, our colleges are training our people to work in these mines. It is a good paying future. The environmental impact statement has been done. It's met, as numbers were stated earlier, great reviews. We do not need another delay in getting these mines rolling up here. I was born and raised here. In the 80s, Reserve Mining Company shut down, and so did a lot of other mines. My 6th grade class was 100 kids in Babbitt. I graduated with 54 as a direct result of Reserve shutting down. Graduating class today in Babbitt, my son's class, 23 kids. Ely's numbers have gone down as well. We need these jobs. Tourism is nice, but it doesn't pay the same scale. It does not employ at the same level. These people that work tourism are working 2-3 jobs. You work in the mines, you work one. So with that, I wholeheartedly hope you guys pass this resolution opposing this. Thank you.
Thank you, Joe. And we've got Nancy North. Nancy.
Good morning, Commissioners, Mr. Chair, and staff. My name is Nancy Knorr. I'm the Director of Regional Development for Minnesota Power, and I have the privilege of chairing Jobs for Minnesotans. Some folks speaking earlier today are my fellow board members of that statewide coalition supporting responsible mining and copper nickel mining in particular, representing over 55,000 members of the building trades across the state, as well as over 2,500 businesses and local units of government and chambers of commerce. As others before me have stated, the programmatic EIS is not necessary. It is redundant. It is duplicative to what we already require the projects to undergo, and as illustrated by PolyMet's 8+ year process of environmental review. An important review process. We do deserve to have a rigorous review and a regulatory climate here in the state of Minnesota, and that will assure our citizens that mining can be done right. We've been transparent in our opposition to the programmatic EIS and have submitted letters to the Undersecretary of the USDA as well as our federal delegation. I also am aware that we have members, as Charles spoke earlier, that have submitted letters opposing that PEIS, including the Duluth Chamber. I think this is an issue that affects all of the county as well as our northern communities. So with that, I just want to stand here endorsing the resolution before you and hope you do vote to pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. And Ted Spalding from Ted.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Ted Spalding, and I live in Ely. And I'm not going to make a statement. I just have a question. I don't even know if you can answer the question, but I have a question for the county attorney. How can Commissioner Nelson propose this resolution? Cities and towns propose a very similar resolution against the PEIS if the PEIS is federal law. Now, is it just, you can propose anything against anything because the proposal is not law. Is that, that's my question. How does that work?
I would turn to the county attorney and ask. The question has been asked of the county attorney.
Sure, Commissioner Forsman. It's only a requirement if there are 2 other steps met under federal law. It isn't automatically required just because someone asks for it. And it's not an accurate representation. There are 2 steps ahead before it would be required by federal law.
Before what would be required?
Before the PEIS would be required. Federal agencies have to get involved and make 2 other determinations.
And they have not done that?
Correct.
Are they expected to do that?
It's up to them.
Is there historical precedence for them doing that? Do you know?
Don't know.
Does
that help?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Thank you, Attorney Rubin. And I have no one else listed, but others are very welcome to speak. They're Charlie, your
I
information?
forgot one thing, I have certified copies of all the resolutions on this PEIS from the city of Virginia. I'll give it to the clerk.
Just do the clerk, please.
I'm not gonna speak anymore, but I just want, I forgot.
Very good. Are there others that wish to speak on this resolution? And typically, we don't do a second round, although I know that Jerry has Tyler has a number of information that he wants to pass to the clerk.
It's been passed.
Okay.
Can I have another 5 minutes?
I'd be real careful not to do that. Jerry, because I know that you and I would be on the same page, but I'll tell you what, I would be accused of being favored, blank favorite. So with that, I better not on it. With that, is there anyone else that wishes to speak on the resolution? I will now turn to the county board, because I know the number of the county board would like to speak for, either for or against the resolution. So are there, Commissioner June?
I'm not speaking for or against, but that before the meeting began, I was handed 2 items that it is requested be put in the board, with the board packet related. Actually, I didn't take one of these. Can I? So there's one for every county board member, but that they also be part of the packet for this resolution. One is the article from the Timber Jay, and as I think everybody knows, we had attached to our agenda item and resolution a note from the Ely Echo. This is simply a different view of this from the Timber Jay, and then the second is a letter to the editor. So I just asked that those be entered into the record.
Thank you, Commissioner Jewell. With that, county board members, I know that once it starts, there will be people talking. Commissioner Nelson.
Mr. Chair, and this will be the last time I speak to this resolution prior to its vote. What I see happening in northeastern Minnesota is but a microcosm of what's happening in the state and in the nation. I'll read you the first line off of attachment 1 that we were handed. And it says, I write on behalf of my client, Northeastern Minnesotans for Women. But the most significant piece there is, I write on behalf of my client. What we have created is an industry. And it's an industry that, quite frankly, I've had people that work with it every day compare it. When I said that it was a nice little cottage industry, I was told that the industry that has been created around environmental law and studies actually makes Microsoft look like a Kool-Aid stand. And here's an example. Because you have individuals that are making not tens of thousands, but hundreds of thousands of dollars representing groups. And it's happening every place. And then they take those dollars and they buy influence at the highest levels of government. And I have to tell you, I find that very upsetting.
So mining companies don't do the same thing,
Oh,
Commissioner? I know I'm out of line.
Please.
That's crap.
Please. I think everyone's been respectful on both
Yes.
sides, and I think one of the things is that, and I'll just say this, as chair of the board, I think this board has been very respectful of differing opinions on this board. I'm not always respectful of people that differ with me, but then again, I'm not running for election, so. But at the same time, let's let's really be respectful. I think that this whole group today have been very respectful, and I appreciate it. As chair, I will try to be respectful myself there, and please, Commissioner Nelson, please continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If I may add to that, Mr. Chair, as a past chair of this board, that shaking your head no while someone else is making a statement is also very disrespectful.
You're lying.
I'm out of order, I know.
Well,
Please be quiet then. Jenner and Locke is working free. Nobody paid this.
Mr. Chair,
I'll leave.
I would ask for personal privilege.
Personal is that in my 20 years, actually 32 years as a local elected official, and whether it's right or wrong, the opinions that are stated by the county board and by city council are typically that. They're their opinion and how they feel about a resolution that's in front of them or whatever. So in other words, just because you disagree with them, don't get angry at it. They were elected by, in this case, by 28 to 29,000 people, each one of us, and each one of us believes that we're representing those people, the majority of those people. So with that, keep that in mind, and I know that it's sometimes we disagree so hard, so vehemently, I guess that's not the right word, but we disagree so much that we want to shout out, hey, you're wrong and stuff. But at the same time, obviously, when you have an issue where some people feel it's this way, somebody is wrong, but I don't know that the answer is in this room. So with that, I'm going to turn it back to Commissioner Nelson, and we'll let him finish his statement. Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair Commissioner Forsman. The passion of our area is one of the things that truly makes it great. And I admire that passion. But I would also like to have everyone in this room understand that respect goes both ways. And I respected every person who came forward. I learned some things here today. I don't necessarily agree with some of the speakers, but I did learn some things here today. I will tell you that in my travels as your county commissioner, whether that's to St. Paul or to Washington, when I make the statement that the influence that is being bought and paid for by the environmental groups, that's a true and factual statement. It is also a true and factual statement that corporations do the very same thing. They do. They have to make certain that their voice is heard. My concern is when the individuals or individual groups that they go to these meetings, whether it's in St. Paul or whether it's in Washington, as if they somehow represent the entire area, which they do not. The people that represent this area, many of them are seated at this table. Many of them spoken with voices at meetings of their own, with resolutions of their own. That is the voice of this area. And I think it's important that the voice of this area be heard. Our resolution that we passed some 2 or 3 years ago now, Mr. Chair, stated very emphatically that this board is in support of sulfide mining, as we call it, sulfide mining. It's actually copper-nickel mining, but it's in support of the copper-nickel mining industry. But it states very clearly that that is after they have passed all federal and state review. I stand by that. When these different mining companies, and I've heard, well, they're multinational, they come from all over the world. I would remind the speakers here that most of your ancestors came from all around the world as well. That is another piece that makes this a very unique area to live in, to represent. But these corporations are coming here because the natural resources here. My concern is that we do it here, where we have the toughest environmental laws, not just in this nation, but ladies and gentlemen, in the entire world. And if we can't do it right here, folks, then we should find a way to live without copper, nickel, platinum, palladium, and all of the other things that we as a society have grown so dependent on. I stand here today in favor of this resolution, having proposed it, knowing that the process, if we are going to indeed call it a process, that it has to be finite. There has to be an end point. I hope that that end point is near. And as tough as I am, I'm trying to work this through, you have my commitment that I will be that tough on a mining company that does not follow the law, if not tougher. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. It is to commissioners right now. Is there other commissioners that wish to speak to this? With that, let me just say a couple things because, go ahead. Okay. Oh, I wanted the last word, but we'll do that. Just a couple of things that came up in all of the dialogue there and stuff. First of all, I'm very supportive of this resolution. I believe that the EIS, that supplemental EIS that has been done already and the additional work that's done, there's no question in my mind, after attending as many meetings as I have on this and listening to as many people for and against mining, that the work has been done and it is continuing to be done, so that it is going to be done as safe as it could ever be done in the world. And this isn't, in my mind, I like to hear the word precious metal mining, not sulfide mining, because I don't really think that sulfide is just is a byproduct of it. Doesn't necessarily mean that it's a bad thing. Our rivers and streams go through sulfide rock. There's a number of things there. But a couple of things that go through my mind, and I'm going to underscore the fact that I believe that the environmental movement, if it was as strong in the past as it is today, we would not have an interstate system. I really don't believe so. I don't believe that we would have the Tennessee Valley Authority that has put a tremendous amount of electricity into the air. I don't think we'd have the Sioux Locks. I don't think that Carnegie Steel would have ever got off the ground, and we would have the bridges and all those other things that came from the steel industry. Because at that time, the steel industry was probably one of the greater polluters. But at the same time, they were doing the best they could with what they had. And this nation would not be what it is today. I think that I listened to Bob Tammon as he mentioned that West Virginia, how bad it is. Well, I'll just tell you right now, I spend a lot of time on the road. I've been out to the East Coast with my son being stationed out on the East Coast now, and my grandchildren there. We spend a lot of time out on the road. Try to get a motel in Morgantown, West Virginia, or any place from the time you get to West Virginia till the time you get out of West Virginia. You're not going to find a motel late at night because all of the drilling trucks and all the mining trucks are taking up all the parking spots in there, and there ain't a room to get into there. Go up into Pennsylvania, where my brother-in-law lives, where Doug Hodla lives, and stuff, and try to find a spot that doesn't have that where the motels aren't full with people doing natural gas drilling and pipelines being done, et cetera, et cetera. We aren't going to find it. So please, don't tell me about it. I've been there. And I talked to my brother-in-law. I went down to the coffee shop with him. I've been all of those places. So I'm going from personal experience, not from what's being said here, but from personal experience. When I look at the things, and I'm not speaking as chair right now, just so you, and this is opinion. This is opinion guided by things that I've seen in my lifetime. I am concerned more about my children and my grandchildren and their quality of life that they have. I don't think their quality of life is going to be really great if they had an opportunity as I did as a child, to take and work at Canadian Waters, which I worked at for years. My uncle worked for Becky's father at Drums there. I mean, those jobs don't provide income for a family anymore. Talk to Dan Waters at Canadian Waters. The business is not what it was when I was a kid. All of these things. Go down our main street, look at the boarded up windows. I'm hearing all about how wonderful the industry is. When I was a kid, you couldn't walk up the streets. You can bowl down them. You go up there today on a sunny day and you can bowl down them and never hit anybody anymore. So, and the other thing that gets me is this board is just joining a number of other jurisdictions that's just opposed to another roadblock in the efforts to take and bring jobs into our community and EIS, that's our supplemental EIS that's in the process, the review period, all those other things. It's just one more roadblock being put up in front of it. And following the EIS, I mean, certainly the northeastern Minnesotans for wilderness and everything else, I certainly expect them to take this to court because we got lawyers, we got to feed and everything else, and they'll take it to court, and it's going to take another several years before anything ever happens. Again, opinion. One thing that Carol said about free trade, she and I are on the same page here. I absolutely, there's a number of things that, you know, when we talk about people with differing views and stuff like that, you know what, we might have a differing view on some things, but we have a similar view on wars, on free trade, on a number of other things. The last thing, I'm just going over my notes here. The last thing I'm going to say is that several times I heard people bring up about hard rock mining, taconite. Is hard rock mining, and yet, yeah, that's what taconite is. It is the original hard rock miners. I mean, and that's been brought up as to be opposed to hard rock mining. What I'm trying to say by saying that is that not all of this is about sulfide mining. That's one battle in a large war to shut down the northern part of this state there and make it into some kind of a mecca. That's, again, opinion. And the other thing, and I'm going to say it is going to be a little bit, not tongue-in-cheek, but it might be a little bit stabbing, not stabbing, but a little bit jabbing, I guess, there on multinational. I've heard multinational, profit-oriented, and I can almost bet, and I'm going to make this little bet here right now, that when the room clears and all of the doggone people go out of here, I can almost guarantee that the environmental people are going to get into their multinational Hondas, their Subarus, and everything else, where the profits go to some country that is not the United States of America, and then most of the people that are pro-mining are going to get into their Chevrolets, their Fords, their something with a domestic monitor. And I might be wrong, but I've never been wrong before on this there, so I mean, and I'm going to stop with that. That is my opinion as the 4th District Commissioner, not my commission as the chair, and I will resume the chair duties at this point there. Is there anyone else that wishes to speak? Commissioner Rocker.
Thank you, Chair Ford. And, you know, I just want to say that I'm really proud of everyone in this room. The testimony that was provided is, you know, a divergence of opinion that is reflective of a well-educated populace. I really feel proud of the people, what they've said, because I have roots here that go back to the 1800s. My great-great-grandfather was the second mayor of Hibbing, and his wife the first school teacher. So my family's been around the Iron Range, and I've seen, it wasn't mining that started Hibbing, by the way, it was timber, and the timber industry was there first, and it paved the way for mining once that was discovered. But I'm really proud of what has been said here, and I only wish that those who represent us in Washington and in St. Paul had the same opportunity to hear the kind of testimony that we have the chance to hear, because they simply don't. It's mostly hired guns in St. Paul and hired guns in Washington that provide most of the direction and lobbying efforts on every front at all times, and it's not hard to figure out. And granted, we go there as local elected officials, and we sometimes have a hard time getting appointments with people we want to see because we got to stand in line with hired lobbyists. lobbyists and registered lobbyists whose opinions seem to be more valued than those of us in representing the people that we represent here. But I'm also proud of the Minnesota's environmental review process as well. I think we have tremendous laws in Minnesota that look out for the environment, look out for the interests of the people, and our most valued resource, in my opinion, moving forward, is water. Water is clearly our most valued resource. We have an abundance of it. We have it flowing over our roads. We have it flowing into our basements. We have it in all kinds of places that we don't want it to be because we have so much of it, and we want to continue to take care of it and be stewards of not only our resources but our water, which is one of our most valued, because when the one-time minerals are gone, they're gone, and they're turned into other products, as we all know, and become other things. Water is our future. Water is the future of the water planet, and will continue to be, and we need to do everything that we can to protect it as a resource, because we all know that without it, no life exists whatsoever. And philosophically, I've never said this publicly, but I'm convinced that mankind, on the scale of all other living species on the planet Earth, is clearly the least capable of living in harmonious coexistence with all that goes around us. We're at the top of the food chain. The rest of the food chain takes care of itself. You know, the big fish eat the small fish, et cetera, et cetera. But we set our own rules. We make our own rules to guide our civilization. And civilization is not as far as it probably will. It's obviously going to continue to move forward. And that's just a philosophy that I have, and I think it's just a part of being a forward-thinking person and having your eyes wide open, because we're a long way from being a completely civilized world. You don't have to go farther than the evening news or the BBC or CBC to see what's going on in the world. We've got a lot of work to do before we find a harmonious coexistence, I think. The mosquitoes take care of themselves. You know, we sit here, it's a quandary. There's so many unknowns about precious metals mining. It's totally new to this area. Yes, we've had mining for over 100 years. We need the jobs. We have concerns over the environmental impacts. We have concerns versus the economic impacts, and where do we find the balance in all of bringing this together, because there's a lot of testimony validates that we're a declining area, we're a graying area, where everyone in this room is over, I don't want to offend anybody, but there's nobody under this room younger than 30 years old, I would say. And the average age across the Iron Range is about 55 plus. I graduated in a class of having a 65 people, and now they're graduating 150. And it's a sad affair. We export our children. That's one of our biggest exports. We educate them. We value education. We send them away. We educate them. And there's a failure. There just doesn't seem to be enough opportunities for more of them to return to revitalize our schools. I've said many times, perhaps we need another wave of immigrants from Eastern Europe to come here. Let's give them some land, some opportunity. They're an educated workforce, and let's rebuild. Let's get more Finlanders here. Let's get more Italians, Yugoslavians, Croatians, Germans. It's worked well once already. Why wouldn't it work again? You know, albeit when they came here, they were all divided. They lived in their own little parts of their communities, their own little areas. We can't forget that. We're kind of blending together. You know, we've had some differences of opinion here, and that's very healthy as well. And it brings me to the resolution itself. As has been stated, we've grappled with this before. It should be known that the resolution is really an advisory resolution. It has no real solid authority per se. We're not the dog wagging the tail in this fight. We want to be supportive of our local citizens, of our economic development. But this resolution, as our chair has said many times, we pass resolutions about a lot of different things, other than the basic business of managing our budget. That go to Washington or St. Paul, and there's a pile here that says I'm in favor. There's a pile here that says I'm not in favor. Commissioner Forsman has used the example countless times, and in the end, they all get recycled because it's just a pile. It's a pile of papers, and whether they pay much attention to it or not is irrelevant. But I'm supporting this resolution, but it is not without reservation about the concerns raised. I've learned some things here today. There are some handouts I want to go through and read that raise some very valued opinions. You know, and I hate to see these types of things because they are divisive in nature. They divide our communities. We should be respectful of divergence of opinion at all times, but sometimes a little harmonious coexistence would really help get us through these things. Bottom line, I'm not naive to the problems that could potentially occur moving forward. I think there's risks at every turn. I live in a small community, you may know or heard of it, called Kelly Lake. It's west of Hibbing. It's surrounded by U.S. Steel and Hibbing Taconite, and it's the home of Burlington Northern that runs right through it. I have the Mesaba Trail out my door and roads going in 2 directions so I can get out of town. But it's evident that there's impact, there's mining going on all around me as the people drive to work daily, you know, and it's all good. But I live with the impacts of mining. If you've ever flown over there in range, who could not recognize the ravaged landscape that we have as a result of iron ore mining, and yet it's becoming, you know, the University of Minnesota School of Architecture did they have a fancy name, there's a French word they use.
A charrette?
A charrette.
Yep.
Did a charrette of what the potential secondary uses could be of the 100 miles of abandoned mines when it does happen and the resources exhausted from Grand Rapids to Virginia. And there's potential plans for some tremendous reclamation efforts that will create new recreational opportunities and new tourism attractions, new places to develop. And because we all know as soon as the mining's done, those fill up with water, good, fresh, clean water that we used to all swim in until they put up the fence lines. Now we can't get into the mines anymore. I don't know what Rukavina did about that, but he's not gonna, he's smiling. He's a good friend and colleague. So, you know, we have to choose our battles. We have to choose our hills to die on, and unfortunately, maybe this one is gonna make some people unhappy, but I'm trying to put it in perspective. It's a resolution from this that's consistent with what we've done in the past. We support the efforts. We support, in effect, the environmental review process. And I honestly believe, regardless of what we do here today, this programmatic environmental impact statement is going to move forward. It'll be a judicial decision. It has been stated that is a law. It's probably going to happen. But we've taken it upon ourselves to let our opinions know, let you know what our opinions are about it, and encourage you to bring your opinions back to us to educate ourselves as to what you're thinking at the same time. And, you know, this resolution, I'm pretty convinced is going to pass, as had the one in the past. But, again, thank you for what you've all had to say here. It's been valuable. I've learned myself. And it's not without reservation moving forward that I have, the last thing we want to see is an environmental atrocity that's going to plague us for many, many years to come and intoxicate the most valued resource we have, which is our water. And I'm hopeful that the laws we have, that the science we have, and that the corporate community will be responsible, and that, as Commissioner Nelson stated, you know, if problems arise there's a need to mitigate or correct the situation, we'll be the first ones to say, you damn well better do it, because you know, we live here. We're not visitors. We're 24/7, 365, and I hope that our future generations can be here to stay, to live out their lives here and to raise their families as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Rocker. Commissioner Jewell, and then Commissioner Dahlberg.
Thank you, Chair Forsman. You know, I have thought about this resolution a lot. We actually talked to the county attorney about whether or not it was possible to abstain, as I think it's not our job to vote on it. And it's like Commissioner Rocker, pretty clear to me that it will be the decision by others, as the county attorney has pointed out, and they may not have been through the process. I decided not to vote against this because Commissioner Nelson got the votes. He has the votes to pass it. But I actually think that the argument that Hans Olsen made is a good one. That if in fact it's something that can work, we should not be afraid of the programmatic EIS. That it's something, I support mining that can meet the environmental standards. And part of this is everybody keeps talking about this mining company. But the fact is the programmatic EIS is about those mining companies, of which there are 5 or 6 who are going to be spread around the whole region. That it isn't one mining company we're talking about. It's true. We've been working on Polymet. Polymet and folks working with them and the agencies that are involved have done a wonderful job up to this point of taking testimony. We still don't know the answer as to whether or not it can pass all the standards, but we know that that they're moving forward. So we don't have the answer to that yet. We're waiting for it, so we don't know whether or not Polymet has passed all those standards. I'm looking forward to hearing that. I'll be looking forward to whether not the federal government believes that the impact of multiple mines in the watershed is greater than the impact of a single mine. And I think that is something that the federal government will decide. But I really, this is the 3rd time one of these resolutions has come up, and every time there's been an attack on people by commissioners, on people who don't agree with mining. And it's hard for me that, as Commissioner Rocker pointed out, we had enormous civility from all of you. And I'm pleased and, like him, impressed by the civility in our communities. And I want that a kind of civility as we move forward. I will say that each of these, this gets thrown out and, it's just those crazy wacko environmentalists who show up. But the fact is, today there was twice as many of them in support speaking. In each of the prior conversations about mining in this area, it was also true. And maybe it's like Richard Nixon said, there's this huge group of silent Americans who aren't speaking. But I don't know that. What I know is that they're the people who do show up and who do speak to us, and I take all of them into account. But there is a really strong group of people who are people who live here and work here and own businesses here who are concerned about this. And I take into account what they say just as strongly as I take into account those of you who support mining. I don't think one is better than the other. And so as we move forward, as I said, I'm not going to vote against it, but it has the votes to pass, and it's going to move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner Jewell and Commissioner Dahlberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually chair the Environment and Natural Resource Committee, but it was Commissioner Nelson that brought forward the resolution and asked me about it, and I said gladly, bring it forward, and I would support it, and I am supportive of it. I think this resolution is important. How much significance or impact at the end of the day, I guess only God will know. We don't know that right now. We can only predict. But I can tell you what goes on in Washington, D.C. I know that 2 years ago we were out there as a county board trying to work with the Corps of Engineers issue on permitting issues. And when we were out there, as we had our nice presentation and we got to speak. We didn't get to speak at that point with the elected officials, and there was a purpose for that. We wanted to first educate the staff. But in the words of Gomer Pyle, surprise, surprise, because as we talked about the Corps of Engineers, who was on the agenda the next week to talk with the same staffers? It's the Corps of Engineers. And so we have but one voice, but I think it's important for us to make a statement out there. I represent 35,000 people in my district, or approximately, and I not only represent West Duluth, but I look as a county commissioner. I look outside the district and I try to do right, and I think other commissioners do for the entire St. Louis County. So, I look at that, and I think it's important for us. I see that we're making a statement saying, enough is enough. We have to have a process that's built on science and not emotion. And I think too often that's where we've gone. It's been raised to us, well, why wouldn't I support a programmatic environmental impact study? Well, the issue is, and I'll be frank with this, is that, once that got done, I know there still wouldn't be people happy at the end of the day. And even if I could prove to the other side, and I'm supportive of mining, but even if I could prove to the other side how many angels could dance on the head of a pin, I fear that we still wouldn't end there. And so I think this is important for us to say to these agencies out in Washington, D.C., whatever impact it will have, you know what, we already had this process. It was a thorough process, it was vetted process. I spoke on behalf down in the Twin Cities on this. So it's a good process. And this is only a means, and I'll put it out there, it's obstructionist. And I talk to my fellow commissioners up on the range, and I often say, I'm going into my district to check out mining operations. Well, it's not too far-fetched from that, because I have industrial welders and machinists. They take those big parts out of the mines, they actually travel them down there, and they work on it. Or they go up and work. I mean, if you get polymet going, it's probably going to be 3-4 times full-time people up there, plus the jobs down there. I can talk about the WP&R marks. They do the industrial, the belt conveyors. But another story I'd like to talk about is in my district out in Gary, New Duluth. And we've been talking about these terrible multinationals that come in. Well, there's a multinational that has a business in my area, it's the foundry, ME Global. And so, recently, it was maybe a couple of years ago, they had an expansion there. And they expanded 50 new jobs in my district by this terrible multinational in there. And the nice thing about it is, wouldn't it be nice if you had a business that you could do an expansion? They had tradespeople making this, but not only you had the expansion, but how about if you have a business with the expansion and you have customers built in ready to go into the future? Now that's nice. And they make these big grinders that go into the mines. That's great. But here's where the story turns sad, is that where are all these parts going? They're going to Mongolia, China, rather than going up to Polymet, to the other mines up there. We can have both, this is the Committee for Environment and Natural Resources. We can harvest the natural resources and at the same time protect the environment. And that's the sad thing where this term takes. And so, sometimes I joke, but it's not too much tongue-in-cheek. The military, I just retired a while ago, they taught me Mandarin Chinese because they thought in this global environment they might need some military officers that speak Mandarin Chinese because the military threat. Well, at the rate we're going, we're going to have to all know Mandarin Chinese because we're going to be working for the Chinese. I mean, we are allowing our country to be handed to overseas competition. I know we talked about the dumping issue. So we can do the best environmental standards in this country. And we have the science that's here to do it. So I'm saying, enough is enough. We've had that science, we've had that process. Now we need to go on, issue the permits, let's get the mining going. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Gilbert. Commissioner Boyle.
Thank you, Chair Forsman. First of all, I want to thank everyone who gave testimony today. I think it was brilliant. Both sides of the issue, you're very compassionate over this matter, as well as you should be. It's significant, especially with the sulfide mining issue. It's new to the area, and there's still questions to be answered. I was proud yesterday to be with 4 other commissioners, Jewel, Rocker, and Nelson. We were standing with 2,000 brothers and sisters, and 23 more people is there too. Standing with 2,000 brothers and sisters with the fight of making a fair trade with our steel. with South Korea. And with that being said, it's very different. I'm going to tackle these mining issues individually. Some of you might not know, I grew up in the state of Wisconsin in Superior. My dad, for a big majority of his life, was in the laborers union. My mom was a teacher in Superior. Very strong union roots that I grew up with. That's what put food on my table growing up, and I appreciate that. I've always led that. But also my mom and dad were very environmentally conscious. So I keep those core values really strong, and with this issue I struggle mightily with it. Because I try to find compromise, which I think you should try to do, especially in local government. It's really tough on this issue. And I think we struggle with it not only as a commission, but in the state and as the federal government. When I first met my wife, she was getting, my soon-to-be wife, she was getting a job in St. Paul, and I soon followed her begrudgingly because I bleed green and gold Packer colors. So it was really tough for me to move over to the state of Minnesota 16 years ago. But I did tell my wife, and I quoted her, I said, well, if I'm going back, I got Jim Overstar, I got Paul Wellstone, and I got the Boundary Waters to fall back on, to be proud of. And as everyone will know, we lost 2 of those. And I'm still an avid fisherman. You know, I'm busy these days with raising 2 beautiful daughters. I still try to get out and walleye fish, especially in the spring, and then whitefish net in the fall, in the BWCA. And I want to teach my daughters how to do that for future generations. So with this, I'm taking this vote very, it's been heavy-hearted. I will be supportive of the measure today, following federal leadership on it. But that being said, this is a resolution of support on this one against. This does not have teeth in it. It's like other votes that have been on this board regarding support of PolyMed, whether it's support of voter ID or marriage amendment. This county does not have that much teeth in it, but it is, I foresee in the future that we will have some teeth with future issues coming in the years forward. And I'm going to be very, very cautious on how I do that vote. But today I'll be supporting this measure.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Stopper.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioner Forsman. I do also appreciate the comments from those in support and those aren't supportive of it. I really believe that our water is important, and clean water is especially important. And I believe that our current EIS is sufficient, and we have the greatest lake in the world in Lake Superior. When my wife returned from Iraq, she returned at 11 p.m. At 7 a.m. we were on Brighton Beach. She needed to see the water from all the dust she saw for the prior months. We have to have the courage to lead, and we have to have the wisdom to listen. I have listened and listened intently, and I truly believe we can do it right. And I think in just a few short years, we'll have 2 PolyMed twin metals operating, supporting the middle class, boosting the economy. I sure hope Babbitt has more than 23 seniors. Mr. Chair, I hope Ely has more than 50 or 60 seniors. I'm looking forward to supporting this resolution. And as Commissioner Dahlberg, I too have businesses within the city of Hermantown in the 5th District that support mining, the byproducts, the secondary jobs that come with it. And we demand that it be done right, we demand that it be done safe, and I'm in support of this. Commissioner Jewell, I too am very proud of the civility with a few exceptions today. The people that I don't agree with that spoke, you're not my enemy, you're my neighbor. You are fellow citizens within our county. the words you spoke were passionate, and I supported that. I support the civility in our government. It was also stated, I think, by one of the speakers, how can we oppose a federal law? I believe, it's my belief, that some folks in our federal government have forgotten middle-class America, the middle-class workers. So when we should oppose certain aspects of federal government that they throw on middle-class America and Main Street America. I'm looking forward, as this process goes, to support our mining industry, knowing and demanding that the accountability, the environmental factors are met. And I do believe through our EIS. I too spoke at the public comments period in support of our mining industry and the jobs that it will bring, including keeping our environment safe and the clean water safe. I believe in the scientists and the environmentalists that are working this, and so to the gentleman from Babbitt, I hope in 15 years you have a couple hundred seniors in Babbitt High School. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Stauber. Seeing no other hands, all in favor of said motion, signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. Motion carried.
Mr. Chair, I would ask for a roll call vote.
A roll call vote has been asked for there, and that's perfectly fitting. That's still, and that is Robert's rules does allow that, request. So with that, Commissioner.
Question for our attorney. We voted.
Attorney Rubin, if a roll call vote is called for by a member of the board, is it not, doesn't it have to take place? Under
Chair
Robert's
Commissioner
rules?
Forsman, actually, yes, it does. If it's called it, even though it's unanimous,
I know.
if it's requested, you have to go through it.
Can I, a second question? We already voted. Okay, after you vote, do you still do a second vote?
Yes.
We
Yes,
voted,
if it's
and
asked.
so we're going to
If it's
vote
asked for.
again?
Yeah, it's like a division of the House or something like that. That's the way I remember it. But Clerk Chapman, would you please take the roll?
Okay, Commissioner Jewell.
Abstain.
Commissioner Boyle?
Mr. Chair, I have to ask a question of point of order.
Point of order.
It is my understanding that a commissioner who's been a committee does not have the ability to abstain from a vote unless there's a personal conflict, and perhaps our attorney could clarify.
In that case, I will turn to Attorney Rubin. Attorney Rubin, could you enlighten us on that?
Chair Commissioner Forsman, my interpretation of Robert's rules is that you should not abstain absent a reason, and so I guess I would, especially in this situation here, Commissioner Jewell has already voted, and your roll call vote is not.
Actually, the roll call, as you're saying, is a call to get the roll. I am going to abstain, and as you said, you would recommend, but it isn't, I don't have to, so I abstain.
Okay, with that, Clerk Chapman, continue the roll call.
Okay, Commissioner Boyle, is this Commissioner Dahlberg?
Yes.
Commissioner Stauber?
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson?
Yes.
Commissioner Rocker?
Yes.
And Chair Commissioner Porter?
Yes. So we have, and we have the vote is such there, so. With that, we do have a time specific, which unfortunately we've gone beyond that time specific, and we are, and I know we have Barb Hayden, the Director of Planning here. Barb, are you still here? Do you, would you be willing to put this off till after lunch there? Is it okay? We will return after lunch. Why don't we try to be back here at about 1:30 if we can, and we'll take up the time specific. I'll call the county board meeting back to order and let the record show that all commissioners are present. And we'll go on to our time specific, and I was at 11 o'clock, and it is 11 o'clock, we're all right with that. And we have acceptance of Department of Natural Resource designation as an LGU for the proposed Lake Superior Wetland Bank project, and to adopt the county policy for wetland replacement and wetland banking, and it was brought to us without recommendation. I'm not sure which department this would be in, but why don't we take in...
It's in my district, Mr. Chair, and I would be happy to move it.
It has been moved. Is there support?
Second.
It has been moved and supported. With it moved and supported, I would turn to I'll actually turn to Gary and to take and frame it there. I apologize, Gary, sometimes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is before you today because, Mr. Chair, yourself, you were absent from the meeting held on the 10th, and this was specifically, perhaps that was the first resolution that we dealt with today. I'm sorry, I'll back up. This was moved to the meeting today specifically to hear from the DNR, which has asked that St. Louis County accept the designation as a local government unit for the proposed Lake Superior Wetland Bank. And another part of your resolution is to adopt a county policy for wetland replacement and wetland banking. Those are the two issues that are before you today. The resolution specifically also indicates that that you would accept this designation subject to the negotiation of an agreement, a memorandum of understanding with the Department of Natural Resources. You would accept that designation, again, subject to negotiation of that agreement. Barbara Hayden is here from the Planning and Community Development Department, and she will be able to speak to the progress of those negotiations. In addition, you are asked to, as I said, adopt a policy, which is also in your packet, and Barbara will also speak to the fact that currently St. Louis County doesn't have a policy to deal with something as large as this wetland bank is anticipated to be, some 21,300 acres, essentially. So with that, I would ask Barbara to make the presentation, and then she will stand for any questions that the county may have.
Thank you. And Director Hayden, Barb, you're very welcome. And just so that the board is clear, the first resolution is the one that has been moved. And stuff. The second one will be coming following.
Okay.
Barb, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. Barbara Hayden, Director of Planning and Development. We have before you today, as Deputy Administrator Eckenberg laid out, is several requests for looking at the LGU designation and then a policy, and authorizing us to enter into a memorandum of understanding. Ecosystem Investment Partnership Credit Company, LLC, what we refer to as EIP, has proposed what is a very unique and large-scale wetland bank in St. Louis County. And the proposed project is called the Lake Superior Wetland Bank, and it is estimated to be over 21,000 acres in size, and it's adjacent to the Saxon Bog area. Currently, out of those acres, just over 3,600 of them are in private ownership. 6,000 of those are tax forfeited lands that are held in trust by St. Louis County, and 11,600 are owned by the state of Minnesota as school trust lands under the jurisdiction of Minnesota DNR. We do have a map that lays out the area and the ownership. Under Minnesota statutes, under the Wetland Conservation Act, wetland banking applications must be approved by a local government unit, and who's responsible for administrating the project area. When the WACA rules also stipulate that for projects that are on state land, the LGU is the state agency with administrative responsibility. However, due to the fact that both the county and the DNR are in the process right now of looking at exchange for these lands and putting them into private ownership, the DNR has requested that St. Louis County be designated as the LGU for the project.
And you do have in your packet, there is a letter from Barb Marimore, who's the Assistant DNR Commissioner. And we also have Doug Norris, who's the Westland Program Coordinator, here today to answer any questions. So the private ownership, the Conservation Fund is working with EIP on the Wetland Bank, and it is their intent that once the exchange are completed, that all these lands would be in private ownership. If St. Louis County elects to accept the designation, we think it would be beneficial to have a memorandum of understanding. We've been working with both the DNR and the Board of Water and Soil Resources to lay out the responsibilities. Much of them are guided by statute, what's under the WACA rule now, but we think it's really important on a project of this size that we make sure that we have the technical expertise from these state agencies coming and assisting with those. So we're working on that. We've made progress. We've gone back and forth. We're working closely with the county attorney's office on laying out what needs to be included in that memorandum of understanding. We also wanted to make sure that for a project of this size, we wanted to put a policy in place that follows the format of other county board policies, but really puts all the cost of the preparation and review of the wetland bank is the responsibility of the applicant. And we looked at making it on very large scales wetland banking process. We do have an application out for small ones, it's $1,050, but this is really something of a much larger scale. We also wanted to make sure that there was a process laid out for that, so the policy includes the applicant being responsible for all the costs, also requires that it goes through a public hearing at the Planning Commission, so we can make sure there's an opportunity for people to have input and raise concern, and then it would ultimately come to the county board for final approval. So that is my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions, or if you have any questions specifically for DNR Doug Norris. Thank you.
County Board? You must have done a great job
Good.
there.
I had a long time to think about it.
There you go. With that, the motion is in front of us and it has been supported. All in favor of said motion signify by the sign aye. Aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carried. We have a second resolution following up on that, on the county, establishing a county policy on this, and that follows us in the, let's see, right? This one here is the wetland replacement banking policy resolution, and I'm looking for a motion to, excuse me?
Mr. Chair, if I'm not mistaken, the adoption of the proposed policy for wetland replacement is in the third resolve.
I got it. Yep.
I
apologize there.
You've done it, sir.
We're done. With that, I'm looking for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Moved and supported. All in favor of said motion, signify by opposed, nay. Motion carried.
So you didn't hear from the DNR, huh?
No, we didn't care. Hey, thank you for coming and I actually expected some questions from the board, so I'm glad that you were here for them. So, happy to be here. We'll, you know what, as long as we're at it, why don't we move right into committee of the whole? That'll work out well. So, I would turn to Clerk Chapman to change, take your time. When you're ready, Phil. We'll, thank you, Barb.
I thought it was waiting for the next piece.
Sure. Thank you.
Commissioner Newell?
Here.
Commissioner Boyle? Here. Commissioner Dahlberg? Here. Commissioner Stauber? Here. Commissioner Nelson?
Here.
Commissioner Rocker? Here. And Commissioner Boyle?
Here. We have the consent agenda in front of us.
So moved.
It has been moved. Second. And supported. Any people?
One correction, I think, that needs to be pointed out to administration is under Public Works and Transportation, item number 8, speaks about an agreement with the city of Ely for a fund transfer, and the map attached to the resolution is for a road project in Toivola Meadowlands.
Oh.
You might want to correct that.
Okay. With that correction understood there, the consent agenda has been moved, and that understanding, any other comments? All in favor of such motion signify by the sign aye. Aye. Opposed, nay.
Mr. Chair, I think Commissioner Rocker is just trying to get another public works job in his district.
I was disappointed. I was thinking we could flip it the other way.
Okay. With that, Commissioner Rocker, the floor is yours. You have total control of the meeting.
Total control. All right, we've got 3 items under Public Works and Transportation, Mr. Chair, and first is award of bids and culvert bituminous pavement resurfacing and shouldering tie projects in Duluth Township. And I would move it. Well, Commissioner Stauber?
I'd love to move it, thank you.
Move it, I will support it. And I'll turn to Gary to provide some details.
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly was expecting Director Baldessy to be here, but I know just as he has been in constant contact with Commissioner Rocker, a few things were also shared with me regarding this. The most important component is that the Northland Constructors is the low bidder and came in almost 10% under the estimated budget. So that's, once again, good news. The project is a reclamation, aggregate-based stabilization, bituminous surface, and aggregate shouldering, all on the, I think it's McQuaid Road, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, McQuaid Road. So that is the project before you, and you're asked to approve this low bid.
Is there any discussion or questions? Seeing none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Both same sign. Stands approved. The second one is for additional work associated with bituminous sealing on facade number 9 and 10, otherwise known as the Martin Road in Rice Lake Township.
I'll move that, Mr. Chair.
And moved by Commissioner Stauber, and I would support it. And again, turn to administration for the details.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is as Commissioner Roger indicated, requesting for additional work associated with the Martin Road. And as you see in your background, the important component here is that this is for some chip sealing of this road. And I should note that there's a study, a 15-year study that the Minnesota Department of Transportation conducted that has shown that the sooner a roadway can receive this chip sealing treatment, the greater the life extension of the road. And you'll see that a reclaim and overlay such as this project that you're considering today could experience an 8 to 12-year extension in the service life of the road, which is really fairly impressive. So that's why the Public Works Department has asked that this be brought forward for additional work to take advantage of that kind of road extension that we would have available to us if this is accomplished this year.
Okay, any further comments, questions, or discussion? I think it should be clear to everyone, this is just another one of those techniques that our Public Works Department is employing around the county to extend the life of our roads, and it looks like a tremendous value if it's going to give us anywhere from 8 to 12 more years of service life out of that particular project. That's something in many cases double what we would normally get. Commissioner Nelson.
Mr. Chair, I would just encourage any commissioner or county official that gets an opportunity to, when these dates come around for this chip sealing process, it's a pretty amazing process that they do. And I was out on 2 projects last year, and I got to tell you, I was just so impressed. I drove back on those projects this year in some of my travels, and the surface just looks awesome. And you come through a Minnesota winter like we had last winter, that tells you something about the product. So looking forward to seeing more of this implemented throughout the county, because when it's put on at the right time in the road life is the important piece as I understand it. And like I said, I'm impressed with it. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Good. Any other comments or questions? Commissioner Stauber.
I'll just reiterate what has already been said. This Director Baldessy talked about this at the workshop, how important it is the year after the new surface is put on to chip seal it for additional life expectancy. I think the general public probably, there might be some people in the township, why is this happening, but they'll soon realize that their taxes have been used wisely by doing this, performing this new method.
Good. Other comments or questions? Seeing none, all in favor signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
All same sign, stands approved. And the last item is additional work associated with bituminous sealing on facade 4, County Road 540, and at the Pike Lake Public Works Facility as well.
I'll move it, Mr. Chair.
Moved by Commissioner Stopper, and I would support it. And turn to administration for clarity.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is another opportunity to take advantage of the MnDOT study to also enter into a supplemental agreement, this one for $675,000. The last one we approved was about $200,000, but this is for 3 different locations. The chair mentioned Cassaw 4 Rice Lake Road, between the Martin Road and Thompson Lake Road in Rice Lake Township and Gleason. That's a chip sealing project. The second item is one of our gravel improvement plan projects, double chip seal, and that's the East Olson Road, County Road 540, from Front Highway 53 to County Road 910, which is called the South Beatty Road in Field and Beatty Townships. And additionally, at the Richard H. Hansen Public Works Facility Administration Building in Pike Lake, to treat the parking lots. Engineers estimated that one about $45,000. So again, this is to enter into agreements for additional work. We're getting some excellent cost opportunities on these 3 projects, and that is the resolution before you today.
Okay, open it up for discussion. Any questions or comments? I'm particularly interested myself in the middle one, County Road 540, because it's going to be done on what is now a gravel road. And there are a number of other gravel roads throughout the county that this will serve as a pilot to see whether or not it works or how well it works, to ascertain whether we're going to do this an additional road somewhere.
And Mr. Chair, I think the East Olson Road is the road that now leads to the new school, 2142 School District, new school. So again, that's going to be a well-traveled road for that kind of a test.
Further comments or discussion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by the sign aye.
Aye.
All same sign, passes. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Rocker. And the next item we have is Finance and Budget Committee, Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Forsman, we have one item in front of us today, and I'll tell you this is, we were fortunate enough to receive $700,000 in the state bonding appropriation for this project. It is an exciting project, reconstructing the facility for the North Sheriff's Rescue Squad. And I'm going to turn to Commissioner Boyle, being our Law Enforcement and Public Safety Chair, if you would like to move this.
So moved.
Been moved, and I will support it. Deputy Administrator Eckenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Certainly, as you see, the action requested is to enter into approval of a professional services contract with Danberg, Scott, Gerzino, Wagner Architects of Virginia and Duluth, for the planning, design, construction, and the bid documents, project administration, and project closeout for the Sheriff's North Rescue Squad facility renovation. The resolution authorizes payment of $69,800 for this professional services contract. And again, the background was well established by Commissioner Nelson. We're all very excited that this came through the legislative session and will provide a much needed opportunity for our North Rescue Squad.
Discussion, Commissioners. A couple of more points I'd like to bring forward very briefly. Our rescue squad is involved in operations throughout northeastern Minnesota, as far south as the Mississippi River, or as far west as the Mississippi River, as far south as St. Paul and Minneapolis. And we have a group of tremendously dedicated individuals that serve this county, and not just this county, but this entire region very, very well, evidenced by their participation in just a couple of things recently, the plane crash out near McClay, and the Boy Scout group that they assisted Lake County folks on, not that far from here, Mr. Chair. So it is, this is a long-awaited piece for this board, and later next month, our last meeting of July, This board will have an opportunity to see the new motor pool building in Virginia, which is going to save a tremendous amount of time and travels for our folks out of the Virginia offices. And that's what is making this possible. And this building then will free up. It's interesting to note that the two buildings that the North Rescue Squad freed up within this process, which were way too small to serve our needs, both of them are now serving the needs of local volunteer fire departments. So it's not often where we get to do a win-win-win-win. But folks, this one, I know the community is excited to see it. And I mean, when I say community, I mean all of St. Louis County is excited to see this new base of operations there at what used to be the Virginia Motor Pool. So we're reutilizing an older facility, modernizing it with some agreements that have been done through Public Works. We've eliminated some of the need to have meeting space. We're going to be utilizing the old 911 center as our meeting space, which is immediately adjacent. No need to build out additional meeting space when we already have the facility there. So this entire amount of money is going to be dedicated to making that facility strictly for housing and being able to not only accommodate the needs of the rescue squad, but we're maximizing the space by working with Public Works, and I want to thank Chair Commissioner Rocker for that too. I know there was a lot of that dialogue going back and forth on that, but the right decisions were made, and we're going to be able to put our money to good use. So with that, any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion is carried. Mr. Chair, that is all I have under the Finance and Budget Committee for today.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. The next thing we have is Commissioner discussion items and reports. And so I would first of all, let me do a public thank you to our public safety people, our Public Works for the work they did up at the flooding in Capitolama. That was a tremendous effort by any number of people. When you live in northern Minnesota, you don't always think about floods there unless you're on the Red River. But this particular time, we had some serious issues. I mean, we did, and we had. Our Public Works brought in the sandbags, we located them, we got them up there, we helped fill them. We actually had our administrator out there helping fill sandbags, had our sheriff up there, Dave Phillips spent an awful lot of time up there, Steve Blythe spent a lot of time up there, and all of those things were needed things, and so I want to absolutely thank all of those people, and I know I'm forgetting people, but I mean, I think that it was good work by all, including those people, the supervisors and those volunteers from the Capitolama area there that gave to their neighbors and did things for their neighbors and stuff. So, with that, any other comments of?
Mr. Chair.
Please.
Yes, thank you. Tomorrow at 2 p.m. at the Public Works and Transportation Building in Pipeway, there's going to be a press conference. And it's the Arrowhead Regional Health and Wellness Center is going to be holding a press conference reference to $250,000 that they received from the state for seed for project money, pre-design and development money that will go into the. It appears it's going to be very close to the new schools, and so. I want to just thank this board for supporting the resolution several months back in the city of Proctor when we were down. So that's coming, and thanks to Senator Bach and Representative Burke who carried it in the respective housing incentives. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Stauber. I should report I did go to Washington, D.C. for the annual Transportation Alliance fly-in. My impression, what I was told, we spent time with our two senators, we spent time with, spent quite a bit of time with Congressman Nolan, as our representative, but we did get time with Colin Peterson, Representative Peterson, and a few others, Representative Walls and others talking about transportation. The message that we got, or nobody knows for sure, but the message that seemed to be the most, that was said the most was the fact that they don't expect a new bill to go anything more than possibly a 6-month extension of the current bill. The trust fund runs out of money in August. The MAP 21 reauthorization ends on the end of September. There's an expectation by all that something will be done in Congress, that it will be extended. There was a feeling among a number of the representatives that during the lame duck session that there might be a reauthorization, but the more common belief is that a reauthorization, a 5 or 6 year reauthorization, would not take place till the new Congress is seated after January and stuff. That's what we got out of it. But the one thing that I did get was that and I'll just stop with this, is that there seemed to be a feeling actually from members of both parties that they may start looking at what typically are called earmarks in the past, and are because of the fact that when they did the water resource bill, they put in a whole mess of earmarks in there. They didn't call them earmarks, but they put them in there from both parties. So there's a belief that maybe they will go back to taking and letting Congress take and do some things within the districts that they represent, which seems to be, at least somewhat believed, it's a necessary thing on both sides of the aisle. Not all people are of that opinion, but there are people on both sides of the aisle that feel it. So with that, I'll stop. Commissioner Nelson.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Forsman. Commissioner Forsman's thoughts on the transportation fly-in. By the way, he did fly this time for the fly-in.
First time.
But his thoughts on that are going to be an incredible challenge for this board in 2015. And I know this board realizes that we're losing one of the true voices for transportation needs in Commissioner Forsman off of this board. And there's going to be a void, and we're going to have to step up, all of us individually, because I believe, just talking with several senators yesterday, and in passing with some other state officials, I believe that the state is going to have to take on the transportation issue very strongly in the next legislative session. I don't think they can avoid it. And the truth is, the next Congress is going to have to act, because the simple fact is extending what is right now a woefully inadequate funding source for the transportation needs of this country is simply extending a woefully inadequate source of funding. Somebody has to start moving, but in a county with 3,000 miles of roads, 600 bridges, 400 plus culverts over 5 feet in diameter, which are just like a bridge, we really are going to have to be aggressive in urging some changes. We've got to get at some of the issues that are stymieing this process, and I thank Commissioner Forsman for being so active in this throughout his many years. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Commissioner Nelson. And we're also, I'll just say that in MnDOT, some of our closest allies are getting real close to retirement. I'll use Walter Lou as an example. I mean, he has meant millions of dollars to St. Louis County with the close relationship he's had with our county engineers, et cetera, and understanding our needs here. So, but at the same time, it's kind of like putting your hand in a bucket of water. When you pull it out, it all fills in. Anyway, thank you, and looking for a motion to adjourn.
So,
second. Been moved and supported. All in favor of said motion, signify by saying aye. Opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you.